What's up, YouTube? We're going to have a little discussion today. Today, we're going to talk about why yo-yos are so expensive. Let's get into it. Why are yo-yos so expensive today? First and foremost, they're really not. In the grand scheme of things, they're not that expensive. It's not that expensive of a hobby. Comparatively, if you're looking back or if you're thinking about when you were a kid, or even if you grew up in the 90s and you were around during the yo-yo boom, you know, you would get Dunkin' Butterflies and Imperials for $2 to $5, and even some of the nicer stuff that kind of came along was 10 to 15. I'm talking about like your, you Mega Fireballs and stuff like that. Even like, what was considered at the time one of the best yo-yos of all time, the Omega Raider, was only, I think, 25 or 30 bucks. So, and those were made in America, yada, yada, yada. So, to look now and just have, baseline of like good yo-yo be like 50 bucks, that's a rather big jump, in as far as toys are concerned, sort of, but not really, but we'll get into that. So let's get into what goes into the cost of yo-yos, because you can kind of get yo-yos that are pretty good for a budget price. Like this is the $20 Magic Yo-Yo Hot Diggity. This is my friend Dylan's signature yo-yo. Comes in at 20 bucks. So, but 20 bucks is still, for like the base level entry fee price, a lot more than the $3 to $5 that it was, 10 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever. Well, a lot of things that go into that, and first and foremost is machining quality and QC time. So Magic Yo-Yo is the shop. They own the shop. They're actually the biggest yo-yo shop in China. Most Chinese machined yo-yos more or less come from Magic Yo-Yo. The QC levels are just different. You pay for more QC. So machining quality and QC time is number one of what goes into making yo-yos more expensive. You can get B grades, etc. for way discounted prices, and they vibe a little bit. Some of them, I don't even say that they're unplayable, but, they're maybe not as great once they're vibey and beat up. So machining quality and QC time really eats into, especially the boutique yo-yo makers, time and money. So that's the first thing that sort of bumps up the price. The second thing is volume. The reason Magic Yo-Yo is able to churn out yo-yos at 20 bucks is because they make a ton of these. They are the machine shop. They can make as many as they want. And it doesn't cost them anything except for materials, because they already have the machines. The machines are already being paid for, so they're not paying for their own machine time because they are the machine shop, and they can just churn these out at a high volume, and they don't have to change things or do anything, change the CADs or anything. They can just churn out a bunch of them and sell them at a discounted price, especially because you're sort of getting them factory direct. Whereas somebody like CLYW has to pay a machine shop to machine the yo-yo, and then particularly in the olden days of the really expensive CLYW stuff, they then had to pay an anodizer to custom anodize each yo-yo. Is whether or not they own the shop. So there are some shop-owned yo-yos, and you do see a price differential between the yo-yos that the machine shop machines for their own brand versus what they machine for other people. So this would have been like $160 when it first came out, maybe even more than that. This is a CLYW Orca. This was machined by One Drop, at One Drop, and it is 6061 aluminum, and then it was anodized by Gruntbull. $160. This came out a year-ish later, maybe not even that long. This is the One Drop 5000 Qv Countach. And this was, while it was done by Sonny, who was Anti-Yo, did the original design, One Drop sort of tweaked it to do this one. These were 100. So the difference in price here is huge, but these were machined by One Drop and then released by One Drop for their One Drop brand, drastically reducing what they had to charge for them, although they sold out immediately. So supply and demand was there, but they pretty much were able to get these out at a much lower price point, despite how high quality the machining is. This is one of the most premium yo-yos One Drop, maybe the most premium yo-yo One Drop has ever put out, in my estimation. And, you know, they were able to keep the price down from what just more or less was a standard yo-yo for CLYW like a year previously. So whether or not you own the shop or you are a machine shop who is also a yo-yo brand really also factors into the price of yo-yos. The next thing that kind of factors into the price of yo-yos is prototypes. This is a prototype Swamp Monster. I'll be reviewing this soon, probably next week. So this is a prototype. The final is going to look different than this, but this is like one of the final prototypes. They've had prototypes before this, and truthfully, it's a very good prototype. He's just making a few final little tweaks, but prototypes cost money, and you don't really always make money on prototypes. Sometimes prototypes come back, they're garbage, and you pretty much just paid whatever, $100 plus to $300, depending on how many you got or where you got them from, for a few garbage yo-yos. And unfortunately, that happens. So prototype costs go into it as well. So you're not always just paying for the final yo-yo, you're paying for the yo-yos that came before it to get it right, that ended up being junk, and being junked or being scrapped. So that happens as well. The next thing that it goes into is marketing. So I told you that this is Dylan Kowalski's signature yo-yo. That's marketing. Player sponsorships, etc., etc., etc. That's marketing. Most people don't sponsor a player because they just think they're a good player, or they're like, hey, you're good at yo-yo, here's a yo-yo that we're going to give to you. It's a give and take, you know? Gentry Stein doesn't just get shutters because Yo-Yo Factory thinks he's a nice guy. He gets shutters because he plays the shutter constantly, and he's out and about, and he's in your face. He's got an Instagram with a big following. He's out at contests. He's winning contests using the shutter, etc., etc. Kids see that, they buy the shutter. Makes sense? Makes sense to me. So that's why he has a sponsorship, not because it's because he sells yo-yos, not because he's a good yo-yo player. Yes, those two things kind of coincide, but you got to be able to move the product if you're going to get a product with your name on it. See what I'm saying? So there's that. Plus, they sponsor so yo-yo companies sponsor a team. They mostly pay for that in yo-yo sales to the rest of us. And then they also help sponsor contests. As somebody who puts on a contest, I can relate to that because I rely on those yo-yo companies to help sponsor my contest. Now, in return, they definitely get, I try to give them the bang for their buck, where it's like, especially if they come out and get a table, I try to put it on and get as many people in there as they can so that they can sell more yo-yos at my contest to make it worthwhile for them to come in the first place. So it's another give and take there. But with all that marketing, there's stuff that goes into that too. There's money that goes into sponsoring the contest, coming out to the contest, etc., etc. So a lot of that also goes into the price of the yo-yo. The next thing, number 6 actually, is that you need to be able to make profit to do more. So if every time you put out a yo-yo you're losing money, why would you make more yo-yos? You know what I mean? Maybe the first couple yo-yos as you're getting on your feet, you may be breaking even, or you may have an investment in yourself and in your yo-yo company, and a lot of people do that. But eventually you want to get that investment back. Maybe not, getting rich on it. I don't know anybody who really gets rich on yo-yos for the most part. Now, I've met people who that's their living. Tyler Severance, that's how he makes his living. He is Recess, and he does it that way. But, I've been to Tyler. Like, Tyler lives fine. He's very comfortable. But he's not raking in the cash, and nobody really is. I don't know anybody who's super rich off of yo-yos. Maybe Johan's, but he's been doing this forever. So other than those guys, though, I don't know anybody who's getting super rich on yo-yos. Most of them are just doing it because they love it, and that's really what it comes down to. It's not a money-making scheme. Not much money in yo-yo. You've heard me say that before. They do it because they love it, and if they can support themselves doing it, more power to them. But they got to make a profit to be able to do more yo-yos, so there's that as well. The next thing that kind of factors into this is these are a little more out there, but there's failure rates for yo-yos. B grades we talked about a little bit. B grades you can't sell for full price because they're not smooth. They're not A grade yo-yos. They're B grades, so you got to discount those. But that eats into your profit margin. Same thing with trash grades. G squared. Jake throws away a lot of yo-yos. I know that hurts. It hurts when people say it, and people are like, no, just let me pay you for the trash. Don't throw it away. And he's like, nah, I can't do that. So, that protects the integrity of his brand because he's only putting out premium stuff for the most part. I mean, he gets glitches sometimes that are still pretty premium. But, there's a lot of just stuff that just gets thrown away. And, I think he's thrown away big portions of runs before because they didn't meet his standards. And, the failure rate, that works into the overall profit margin as well. Because if you can't sell a yo-yo, if you had to trash a yo-yo that you paid for, you're not making any money off of it. The next thing is supply and demand. G squared comes into mind with this as well. The yo-yos sell out in like 2 minutes, 5 minutes sometimes. And a lot of times that's like just, the prices stay up there because why would you bring them down if they're selling out at $100? He could probably... Jake's a nice guy. He could probably knock the price up another $20 per yo-yo and they'd still sell out real fast. But, CLYW in the past has had a similar thing. Now, again, like I said, CLYW had to go and outsource machining and anodizing, etc., etc., etc. But, they put a premium tag on their yo-yos because, they really QC'd the heck out of them, too. These were great. These are great yo-yos. To this day, these hold up. The CLYW stuff, particularly the older stuff, I feel like holds up better almost than just about any other brand. I think the older one-drop stuff holds up really well, too. But the older CLYW stuff, which was consequently machined to one-drop, really holds up. And I think the price in that and how they've held their price over the years really has been a factor in that as well. So there's also supply and demand. If you can only make so many yo-yos because you've only got so much money, but the demand is way up here, you want to try to meet it, but at the same time, you can't always meet it because it's not that big of a community. You don't want to overshoot it, so the supply doesn't necessarily always meet the demand. That brings the price up as well. That's basic economics. The other thing is personal time. Not a whole lot of people that I've met do this for a living. I don't do this for a living. I have a full-time job. You see me on YouTube. Yeah, I make a little bit on YouTube and from things in there, and it helps me run contests, and helps me go to contests, etc., etc. But my profit in yo-yo is basically zero. I probably lose money because I spend money on stuff. But my profit in yo-yo is basically zero. I maybe lose money doing this, but I do it because it's fun. But it eats into personal time, and I couldn't imagine running a brand where you had to also QC the yo-yos, do drops, yada yada yada, all the time. In addition to being, a YouTube person. I was going to call myself a personality, but I'm more of a jagoff, really. So it eats into personal time. So personal time costs money. If you want somebody's personal time, it has to be worth their personal time that you're taking away from their family or just their hobbies in general or just playing yo-yo. I mean, QCing and putting yo-yos together and selling yo-yos isn't playing yo-yo. If you prefer to play yo-yo rather than do work-type stuff, it's eating into your personal time. Additionally, like I said, there's other expenses as well. This is number 10. Other expenses are, random things like string that they have to get, bearings. If there's shipping, sometimes a lot of companies offer free shipping, so there's expenses. Just stuff like that. Random other things that you would never think about. Other things that go into the packaging. Think whatever goes into Rain City stuff. You get little Lego men, all that other stuff. None of that stuff has anything to do with yo-yos, but it's all part of the packaging and unboxing experience that you expect from premium yo-yos as well. So there's other expenses that go into that. Those aren't freebies. Those go into the price of the yo-yo as well. But tell me what you think. Do you think yo-yos are expensive? I really don't. Considering everything that goes into them, I actually think the price of yo-yos is very, very fair. I've been told before that usually the market value, the markup, is considerably less on yo-yos than it is for most other products. Yo-yos could really be 33 to 50% more expensive to kind of meet up with some of the other market-type stuff and toys. But because the yo-yo community is so tight-knit, so close, and just such a nice community, for the most part, the price stays down because the only people who are really making yo-yos are really those over-the-top hobby enthusiasts who really just do it because they love it, not because they're trying to get rich off of it. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about this community. But that's going to do it for me today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Leave me some comments down below. Let me know what you think. But thanks for watching, guys. Cheers to you. Frozen Brews Cup. Awesome. I'll see you next time.